Hello, everyone. We are delighted that you have joined us for the learning webinar, Deepening Impact, How Homestead Dialogues Reinforce Community Efforts to End Female Genital Mutilation. This webinar aims to deepen our understanding of how Homestead Dialogues strengthen community-led efforts to end FGM. The specific objectives of the webinar are to share key insights from a study conducted to examine the impact of Homestead Dialogues implemented in Narok County, Kenya, highlighting the potential of Homestead Dialogues to complement wider public community dialogues. Another objective is to share learnings and insights from implementation of various community dialogues. As we give others a moment to join in, please take time. Please introduce yourself in the chat box, share your name, your country, and organization. We would also like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded for sharing with those who are unable to join us. As you have noted, this webinar will be held in English. Interpretation will be available in French, Amharic, and Sign Language. Please now look below your screen, click the globe icon to select your preferred language. For French, click French. For Amharic, click Amharic, and we will be happy to go. While other participants are joining, I'll briefly introduce the Girl Generation program. The Girl Generation support the Africa-led movement to end FGM, TGG ALM program is implemented by a consortium led by Options Consultancy Services, AMREF Health Africa, Action Aid, Orchid Project, and the African Coordination Center for the Abandonment of FGM, ECAF. The program also works closely with the Population Council FGM Data Hub, which is responsible for data collection and analysis. Well, our vision is a world where girls and women can exercise their power and rights, have expanded choice and agency, and free from all forms of violence, including female genital mutilation. Our program is underpinned on do no harm, an ethical principle that ensures that everyone who comes in contact with the program is safeguarded. As such, I would like to emphasize that discussions about FGM can be traumatic for some people, particularly survivors. We therefore encourage all participants to be mindful of the language used throughout this webinar and to engage with care, respect, and empathy. If at any point you feel overwhelmed, please take a break because your well-being is our priority. As mentioned, the session will be recorded and shared afterwards on our YouTube and Twitter channels. If you have joined us, please note that this webinar will be held in English. Interpretation is available in English, French, Amharic, French, and Sign Language. Please click on the globe icon to select your preferred language. French, click French. Amharic, click on Amharic. Well, today's webinar aims to deepen our understanding of how Homestead Dialogues strengthen community-led efforts to end FGM. In today's session, we will share findings from a study conducted in Narok County in Kenya to examine the effectiveness of dialogues, highlighting the potential of Homestead Dialogues to complement wider public community dialogues, to share lessons and insights from Narok implementation of various community dialogues in Narok County. Now, my name is Kigan Kagwe. I'm the National Coordinator for Youth Anti-FGM Network Kenya and the African Union Salima Youth Ambassador. My co-moderator is Mercy Yego, the Regional Representative, Eastern and Southern Africa for the Global Youth Consortium Against Harmful Practices. Mercy, maybe if you could put on your camera and say hi to our esteemed participants.
Thank you so much, Keegan. Good afternoon and good evening and good day or good morning to wherever you're joining us from. Happy to be here and looking forward to having a wonderful webinar. Thanks.
Welcome. Allow me to set the scene for you. We are starting with a quick pulse check to ground this conversation in our perspectives. And therefore, we have poll questions set out for you. And our first poll is now live. You'll see the question presented in English, French, and Amharic. Choose the version that speaks to you and share your response. Eric or Egan, please screen the first poll question for us.
It's coming
Remember
up.
Remember the questions are presented in English, French, and Amharic. Choose the version again that speaks to you and share your responses. Just to confirm, Eric, the first poll question is up.
Yes, it's coming up. I think it's just an internet connectivity. It's just coming up.
Okay. There we are. There's our first poll question. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, there's English and French and Amharic options. Choose the version that speaks for you. And the first poll question is, are you familiar with Homestead dialogues? Choose yes. You can see the answers are trickling in. Maybe you can give each other 2 minutes to fill in. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your responses. And clearly from the responses, what is emerging is a clear diversity of experience in the room. Some of you are deeply familiar, others are encountering this for the first time. And that range is critical because it shapes how we move forward. So as we continue to deepen our conversation, Eric, you could also kindly screen the second poll question for us. Let's remember that as before, the questions are still available in English, French, and Amharic. Please respond using your preferred language. The second poll, it's asking you, what do you think is the purpose of Homestead dialogues in FGM abandonment? Is it around awareness and community buy-in? Is it together with young people, parents, and elders? Is it between mothers and their daughters, husbands being engaged with wives together to promote parental decision? So the element of parental guidance is also there. I can also see a diverse audience based on the responses. For us to continue adding our responses, then we can end the poll and look at the results. Yes, as we move on, I encourage for us to participate in this particular activity because sharing your perspectives, we are seeing a lot of evidence in terms of the interpretations around the roles of Homestead dialogues in FGM abandonment, which is an important foundation for the discussions that we are going to have ahead. So we strongly encourage your responses. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. You can end the poll for us. Well, that's the kind of response that we have right now on what you think is the purpose of Homestead dialogues in FGM abandonment. As we continue with the conversation, we will continue having a look and on these results and seeing how we can continue, as the webinar suggests, to deepen our understanding. Therefore, let's move to the next part. And today's webinar invites us to critically examine the architecture of community engagement. We unpack the different forms of dialogue, the intended purpose, and more importantly, interrogating how Homestead dialogues can complement, strengthen broader public approaches to ending FGM. Therefore, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Frederick Ntopo-Inchoko, Narok County Implementation Coordinator for the Girl Generation Program at AMREF Health Africa. Since joining in September 2024, Frederick has been at the forefront of working with communities, governments, and partners to strengthen protection systems, advance the rights of the girl, and drive locally grounded strategies to accelerate the abandonment of harmful practices. Frederick will take us through AMREF Health Africa work under the Girl Generation Program in Narok County, with a particular focus on the shift from public community dialogues to more intimate household and level engagement through Homestead dialogue, and what this transition reveals about driving sustainable change. Frederick, we invite you to lead us through these insights. And please, ladies and gentlemen, using your hands down there on the chat box, please help me extend a warm welcome to Frederick. Frederick, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Keegan, for the warm, and thank you all of you for this, for your appreciation and for welcoming me. I'll be taking us through the study findings on the different forms of dialogues that we use as AMREF Health Africa to implement. And allow me to share my screen. And please confirm to me, Keegan, if my screen is visible.
Yes, your screen is visible, Fred.
Thank you very much. So let me take this opportunity to welcome us all to this learning session on deepening impact, how Homestead dialogues reinforce community efforts to end FGM. This presentation will be by myself and my colleague, our monitoring and evaluation lead, Herbert Barasa, who will join later on to finish up with this presentation. So let's start by learning what female genital mutilation is. We have different forms of how female genital mutilation is described or how we define it, but FGM remains a violation of the rights of girls and women in many pastoral and patriarchal communities. It is sustained by cultural expectation, power dynamics, and social norms. At AMREF Health Africa, we work to end FGM through community-led and evidence-based approaches. Like it has been reiterated by our moderator, Keegan, these learnings that we're sharing today are from a study that was conducted through the TGG ALM program in partnership with population councils and others in the consortium in Narok County. And the study shows that community dialogues shows that transition and the different approaches that we use all helping us to bring down the menace of female genital mutilation. So AMREF Health Africa works to end FGM through these approaches. The first one is community dialogues and awareness campaign. And the second approach, and today we'll be deep diving on the community dialogues itself. But we also use the approach of school health clubs, that is in-school intervention, and as well as youth engagement through the Youth Anti-FGM Network, specifically that we've been working with here in Narok County, and Girls Council. We also do policy advocacy, making sure that policy gaps on policies that address the end of FGM are tightened, and also media engagement to make sure that we amplify the efforts and the voices that help us to bring down FGM. Last but not least, this engagement of community champions. We train them, making sure that they are trained, they are culturally sensitive, and they use approaches, and we empower them to give them also tools to make sure that they are well empowered to carry on these community dialogues. So these strategies recognize that lasting change requires shifting both community norms at family level and at family level decisions that directly affect the girl. So at AMREF Health Africa, we use layered dialogue platforms to transform social norms around FGM. I could see from the polls that we just ran that there are varied responses on what actually Homestead dialogues are. But we have various forms of dialogues. The first one on your screen, as you can see, is public community dialogues, excuse me. And then we have intergenerational dialogue, and we also have targeted family dialogues. So confirm you can still see my screen?
Yes, you can. You can continue.
Okay. Just a
Yes.
minute. I don't know how I lost it. Okay, okay. Allow me to reshare back. Are we there? Okay,
Yes, we
so the
can.
first, sorry, apologies for that technical hitch. So the first form is public community dialogues, and these ones are used to build awareness and community buy-in, and as well as to engage leaders and the wider community. So for these ones, for example, the wider, when you need a softer landing in your places or your target areas of implementation, you can use the public community dialogues, such as community barasas, to make sure that you have that community buy-in before you can, narrow down to targeted family dialogues or even intergenerational dialogues that tend to bring together youth, parents, and elders. And also, the other purpose for intergenerational dialogues is to bridge the generational perspective on tradition and change. Today, we are going to focus on the targeted community dialogues. The first one you can see there is mother-daughter dialogues. Those ones are used to deepen conversations between mothers and their daughters regarding their future and well-being. And most importantly, we will also talk about the Homestead dialogues or the encounter dialogues, which tend to bring together, relatives, very close relatives, the head of the family, which is the husband, and the wives, their co-wives, and even the daughters and survivors together to discuss on this. Why did we have to have this transition? In many Maasai households, decision-making involves extended family members, particularly in polygamous family structures. This led to the transition because we realized that in this society, we transition from couples to homestead because we are mostly polygamous. A man will show up with his 2 wives, with his 3 wives, and you realize you cannot call those a couple, but they are a homestead. And these are family level conversations within the household environment that bring together the entire homestead. That is the household head, the father, the co-wives, the elders, mothers, adolescents, daughters, and other influential relatives. What is the purpose of these homestead dialogues? To enable collective family decisions on abandonment of female genital mutilation. And why do they matter? Because they create private spaces for honest discussions. They also reduce hidden or unilateral decision making. They build collective commitments within families. And last but not least, when these families collectively agree not to cut daughters, the decisions that are made at the homestead level tend to be stronger and more durable. There are certain principles that you have to employ or you have to apply for effective homestead dialogues. The first one is first inclusive participation. To deepen conversation and dispel myths, the dialogue process is structured to prioritize comfort. So for you to, achieve better, do segment sessions. You can have women aside and have the men also aside so that if there are any gender-specific concerns or there are any myths, you can have those sessions to, debunk them and make sure that that is a safe space. Also, ensure that there is diverse representation. Ensure active participation of, so as you continuously, facilitate that dialogue, ensure that you are very categorical to make sure that senior men or younger women, because in an instance where you have a husband and two wives, there's an older wife and then there's a younger wife. In most cases, the elder wife and the husband will seem to have more voice than the younger. So ensure that you have captured all voices. Secondly, after you have done the two separate sessions, make sure you have a consensus through a joint dialogue. You integrate the feedback. So you transition from the two separate sessions that you conducted for both men and even for the youth, if possible, to make sure that you have that feedback reported back in a joint session. That one ensures that there is shared commitment. So you have to work around and to ensure that you facilitate collective family decision to safeguard the daughters from FGM. And that ensures that there is open agency, which promotes a culture where girls can express their opinions openly to their fathers and the wider family unit. The third principle that needs to be applied is safe spaces for dialogue. Ensure that there is safe space to enable women to also initiate discussion and to argue openly and to put their cases strongly in front of the entire family. Also ensure that girls can express their opinions by having that safe space to make sure that they also talk. And last but not least, on safe spaces is to ensure that survivors can share their testimonies. Fourth is layered social norm change. For Homestead dialogues, you have to, as a principle, combine them with public dialogues and school clubs and youth programs. So before you can actually go directly into a society and go start, implementing Homestead dialogues, it's good for you to start, softening their stance, softening them by starting with public dialogues, intergenerational dialogues. You can also do radio talk shows if you have that, because for radio talk shows, that's also some sort of dialogue to make sure that you soften that stand and you layer that implementation so that eventually you now come to implement Homestead dialogues, because you realize those, at the Homestead dialogue level, those are targeted family dialogues that happen within private spaces. Most importantly, when you conduct all these dialogues, use trauma-informed facilitation. Use trained community champions. So as you plan to implement within communities, ensure that you have those trained champions that employ cultural sensitivity. They also use trauma-informed methods to navigate deeply seated beliefs and emotional experiences. So this is just a photo of one of our trained champions who is also a member of the Youth Anti-FGM Network, facilitating a dialogue session. So Keegan, that's it for me. I donate the 2 minutes to our next presenter. Thank you very much. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Fred, for taking us through this very exciting presentation. Powerful yet grounded. And I think what emerges clearly is something simple, that not all dialogues are the same, and they are not meant to actually be the same. They each serve a distinct purpose, they operate at different levels of influence, and that together they form the pathway to change that is ending FGM. Public community dialogues help us build awareness. They bring entire communities into the conversation, they engage leaders, they shift what is publicly accepted, but I'm also seeing an element of intergenerational dialogues which go a bit deeper. They bring together young people, as you've shown us, parents and elders. They confront tensions between traditions and change, and they begin to bridge them. Also, I think what has really come out strongly for me is that Homestead dialogues bring the household together, the fathers, the mothers, the elders, and the youth. Colleagues from West Africa, I think a song that is blazing across our continent is Papa Uti. And I think it says, where is dad, where is dad? And I think it's at the Homestead dialogue where we're going to find dad who is actually there. And I love this because it's happening where change really is supposed to be happening. And therefore, colleagues, there's an African proverb that reminds us that wisdom is like a baobab tree, that no one individual can embrace it all together. And so in the spirit of shared responsibility, and as I go also to take a glass of water, let me hand over to my co-moderator, Masiego, to take us through the next sessions. Masi, you can yield the floor. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm muted. Thank you so much, Kagan and Fred, for taking us through this. Indeed, Papa, where is Baba? Where is Daddy? Thank you so much, Kagan, and all the speakers and our dear audience. It's now my honor to invite Herbert Tarasa, Monitoring and Evaluation Lead for Family and Reproductive Health Department of AMREF Health Africa. Herbert is a monitoring and evaluation accountability expert with strong experience in project planning, adaptive management, and continuous quality improvement. He is currently pursuing a PhD in development studies and is passionate about evidence-driven sustainable development approaches that strengthen program impact and community outcomes. I now welcome Herbert to present to us evidence that has emerged from the implementation of Homestead dialogue in Narok County in Kenya. Welcome, Herbert.
Thank you very much. Just confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. I don't know about the audience.
Okay, so thank you, Mercy, and thank you, Keegan, Frederick, and the entire team for this important discussion. I'm truly honored to be here today to really take part into sharing some of the evidence we have seen that is clearly aligned with this Homestead dialogue. So as it has been said, my name is Herbert, and I lead our work on monitoring and evaluation at AMREF. So I'm excited to share with you some evidence from our Homestead dialogues implemented in Narok, Kenya. For people who know the country very well, Narok is borders Tanzania. Yeah, so that's an area where we did our implementation. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you currently are. So in my few minutes, I want to share evidence that directly relates to this Homestead dialogue. And here, remember, we're looking at indicators around attitudes. How are these participants' attitudes towards ending FGM? We're looking at their knowledge around key drivers of FGM. We also go to the extent to look at the urgency, especially for the young girls who are participating into these dialogues. How is their voices being projected? Are they being listened to? Then eventually, how does all this influence the behavior for that homestead, making that decision that the direction we're making is not to cut our girls? So we did a cross-sectional evaluation from last year, and this year also we did an endline. And what we found out was really promising, especially for participants in Homestead dialogues. So the first thing that we saw is 97% of men and 93% of women expressed strong opposition to FGM. So they really expressed that they're not going to cut their girls. So it was a very strong position looking at that Homestead. Yeah, if they have this kind of a common position, then the likelihood of the girl not being cut, yeah, it goes really high. So more importantly, when asked about their future intentions, so what's their future intention regarding the girls in that homestead? 99% of women and 96% of men said they were very unlikely to cut a daughter. So what this means, these figures are drawn from those participants. It shows us that Homestead dialogues are not just shifting attitudes. They are shaping intention to act. Yeah, so this conversation are shaping that intention to act. They're showing that the position the household is taking will lead to girls not being cut. So when you look at the next slide, on the positive norm change that is happening, We also saw a transformation in how communities perceive uncut girls. You know that this position that communities have been having before in terms of how they perceive a girl who has not been cut. So among women, we observed that 93% associated uncut girls with health. Yeah. So because previously, when you are uncut, there was some association of some bits of being unhealthy. But here we're looking at participants into these dialogues, taking up a position, that 93% of them associate uncut girls with health. And 91% associate them with modernity. You see, some of these conversations that we are hearing for girls who have not been cut, they are not considered to be modern, they're backwards. But now, for the participants, we're seeing a very powerful shift in terms of how they perceive these girls. So moving away from viewing FGM as that cultural necessity towards seeing a protection as a value of that homestead. We're seeing homestead standing up to take up protection of the girls within those homestead. So when we look at the next slide, we'll be looking at increased urgency. So perhaps the most inspiring findings is that the growth in urgency, that families reported. And urgency is just that power that the girls are having to speak up, to also take up a position in this household and voice how they feel, how they perceive issues around being cut. So what we really recorded, what we observed through this observation, that daughters speaking openly with their fathers about FGM is something that came out strongly. Women were initiating discussions within these households. You could see where that environment have been created within the homestead. Women were coming out to initiate this discussion, to lead this discussion, to guide the discussion. So the urgency grows when you have this kind of intimate discussion in those small groups as a homestead. So survivors of FGM sharing their stories and influencing attitudes. This is something that really came out to surprise us. Within this homestead, there are members that have never listened to stories of survivors. They have never sat down to hear how they feel, what they went through. So it gave a very good opportunity, a good platform that they came out to really share their stories. And this eventually influenced how these homestead attitudes were towards FGM. So briefly, just highlighting some key observations that we have seen, it really proves and positions heavily issues around homestead dialogues and how they perceive towards changing the narrative of protecting girls at that homestead level. So these findings tell us that homestead dialogues do more than raise awareness. So it's not only just awareness that is being raised at that homestead level. They translate that awareness into concrete family decisions. So people don't just get information through these dialogues. It's translating that awareness into concrete family decision. They create private, safe spaces where real negotiations happen and collective commitments are made to protect the girls. I'll now hand it back to Mercy, and I look forward to a discussion, discussing these findings and further during the panel. So I'll give more detail during the panel discussion. Thank you, and back to you, Mercy.
Thank you so much, Habad, for that, for sharing with us promising results of Homestead dialogue. And findings from this study show that, Homestead dialogue translate awareness into concrete family decisions to protect girls. For example, we see that they contributed to strong opposition to FGM, change in positive social norms. And importantly, with Homestead Dialogue, we see that there is increased agency among girls, women, and survivors of FGM. And I can personally relate to this because, coming from a society where we ask our grandmothers about, FGM, and they tell you, no, it's a taboo, we cannot talk about it. But with these programs, it seems that they increase openness to speak about FGM, what they went through, and yes, there is positive change coming on board. I will now take this moment to read a few comments in the chat box. I will go through the chat box to see if we have any comments. Yes, we do have some comments in the chat. I see Jen Ludoni talks about she's a gender sensitive and volunteer on matters of gender during her free time. She promotes some of the government social support programs at the grassroots. Oh, yes, should appreciate integration question. Kindly please, our colleagues, you can take that up. So another was thanking AMREF on the program. The focus on sustainable community-led solutions is exactly what we need to see more of in the field. Keep up the incredible work. This is from Sylvia Teach. Please keep the comments coming in. We'll read them out to the panelists. If you also have questions, feel free to drop a question in the chat box, and you can also ask questions in the Q&A section. Right. So we will now move into a panel session, and our first panelist is Frederick Tomhoy Nchoko, the Narok County Implementation Coordinator for the Girl Generation Program at AMREF South Africa. Thank you so much. Sorry, yes, AMREF South Africa. And thank you so much for your earlier presentation on the journey of how AMREF transitioned from public community dialogue to Homestead dialogue. One, reflecting on your experience, please highlight the main challenges you faced and recommendations you would offer in facilitating Homestead dialogue. Secondly, what practical lessons have you learned from facilitating Homestead dialogue that could help other programs strengthen community efforts to end FGM? Herbert Barasa, you're welcome.
Frederick Nchoko, thank you very much. Thank you, Mercy.
Sorry, Frederick. Sorry. Yeah, this is supposed to
Okay.
be. Sorry for the mix-up.
Thank you very much. So, and thank you all for joining in and continuing to listen. So I'll go to the challenges, and every other work has challenges. So I'll just highlight two of the key challenges that, throughout the implementation of these dialogues, whether specifically the Homestead dialogues. What are some of the key challenges? Number one, power dynamics within families. So we know within family there are hierarchy. So for example, there is the first wife, second wife, and third wife. So that power is sort of imbalance. It brings some sort of challenge because there are voices that are deemed to be a bit superior than the other. So you have to know how to navigate through that facilitation session to ensure that the voices of the younger women, the voices of survivors, most importantly, are also captured, and as well the voices of the girls. The other challenge is geographical and logistical barriers. Reaching, far-stretched families and, mobilizing those homesteads, it might not be as easy as we all might think. So when doing that, you have to plan accordingly. You also have to use well-trained champions so that they can help you to, reach to far-flung villages, because by yourself, probably you will not be able to achieve more. So we highly recommend that you have well-trained community champions that understand how to facilitate, how to navigate cultural dynamics to do that. And then for the practical lessons, that we would like to recommend for program designers, for government agencies, for implementers and all that. Number one is we have observed, and a study has shown us firsthand that community ownership sustains progress. When the family sits together to, lead their own way in, devising a mechanism or change, that sort of transformation feels very authentic and long lasting. The second recommendation will be ensure that the voices of survivors are captured and survivors are given space to, voice what they actually feel, because we have learned that survivor voices are powerful catalysts. Testimonies from FGM survivors at household level bring emotional depth and authenticity, shifting attitudes in ways that facts alone cannot be able to do. The other thing is private. What we have also learned, another lesson is private discussion foster openness. They allow very safe space. They allow genuinity. So going into those private spaces will give you the real feeling of how the community feels, how like we saw from the study that after facilitating these dialogues and after teaching them, a big percentage of them will openly say that they'll not be able to cut. They're not willing. They're not willing to cut their guards. And the last one will be on integration. Ensuring that you integrate Homestead dialogues with other complementary implementation like in-school intervention and the health sector as well, so that you don't just do them as standalones. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Frederick, for that part. Over to our second panelist, please, Herbert Barasa, Monitoring and Evaluation Lead for Family and Reproductive Health Department at AMREF Health Africa. The first question is, given the evidence you shared with us on the impact of Homestead dialogues in Narok County in Kenya, what approaches were used in the study? And what important insights did they reveal for future programming? That is the first question. On to the second question. The question is, how do you ensure that Homestead dialogues remain inclusive, safe, and empowering spaces where survivors, girls, and young women can learn and lead?
Yeah,
Over
thank
to
you.
you, Herbert.
Thank you, Mercy. Yeah, those are quite important questions. So I'll start with the study itself. The study employed a mixed method approach. What this means is we combined both quantitative surveys with qualitative interviews, which included some focused group discussions. This allowed us to capture not just the numbers, the percentages around the numbers, but the stories behind these numbers. So the qualitative part brought out the stories around this. So we surveyed 2,285 individuals across multiple homesteads in Narok County. We also conducted in-depth interviews with men, women, youth, and survivors to understand how decisions were made and sustained. Yeah, so that's how the methodology that we used around this evaluation. So I'll give a few key insights, especially for future programming. What needs to be included into these Homestead dialogues? The first thing is inclusivity. It does matter. Inclusivity matters. That's the first thing. What this means is the shift from couple dialogues to Homestead dialogues was critical because it reflected the reality of polygamous and extended family structures. This was the reality on ground. We could not run away from this. So how can we use this structure to advance this kind of discussions? So future programs must map household dynamics and before designing interventions. Let's understand the dynamics of these families before we undertake interventions. Secondly, safety enables honesty. Yeah, that's the second thing. So when we created separate sessions for men and women before joining, before the joint dialogues, participants felt safer to speak openly. This first approach reduced fear and allowed for deeper conversations. So once you understand the power dynamics, that will now come into us next. Third, sustained change requires collective commitment. Yeah, we want change, yes, but remember we need collective commitment. So what we found out that when the entire homestead, including elders, co-wives, and youth, agreed not to cut, the decision was far more durable. Programming should aim for family-wide consensus, not just individual agreement. An individual agreement we have seen is not holding, so let's go for that family-wide consensus. Then lastly, trauma-informed facilitation is essential. What does that mean? So survivors share their testimonies, but only in an environment where they felt supported. Yeah, they only share in an environment they feel really supported. So for future efforts, must invest in training facilitators to handle trauma with care and empathy. So in summary, the study confirms that Homestead dialogues are a high impact, scalable approach, but only when designed with cultural sensitivity, inclusivity, and safety at core. So lastly, just looking at the second question around how do you ensure that Homestead dialogues remain inclusive? We applied the 4 principles that were mentioned to ensure inclusivity, safety, and empowerment. So the first one is the first unsegmented participation. Yeah, we begin with separate session, men in one group, women in another. This allows participants to speak freely, ask sensitive questions, debunk the myths without fear of judgment. Survivors in particular feel safer sharing the experience in women-only spaces. Secondly, we're looking at trauma-informed facilitation. All our facilitators are community champions trained in trauma-informed approaches. So they understand the discussions about FGM, that they can trigger that emotional distress. They are equipped to really recognize those signs. Yeah, the facilitator needs to recognize the signs of distress, offer breaks or one-on-one support, never pressure anyone to share their story. It is their story. They'll share when they feel they're ready to share. So thirdly, diverse representation in every dialogue. Yeah, so we ensure the senior men, older women, youth, and survivors are all present in the Homestead dialogue. If they're in that homestead, let them be part of this dialogue. This diversity ensures that the power dynamics are balanced and that marginalized voices, especially girls and younger wives, are heard. Yeah. So lastly is creating space for girls and young women to lead. What this means is we intentionally create moments where girls can speak directly to their fathers, to the wider family. In many Maasai homesteads, this is revolutionary. Yeah, this is a big leap that we can make. We have seen girls openly express their views on FGM and fathers listening and changing their decision as a result. So what we're saying is, in conclusion, is that a safe space is not just about physical safety. It's not just about physical safety. It's about emotional safety, respect, and the reassurance that one's voice matters. When they speak, they be listened to. When survivors and girls lead conversations, the entire homestead shifts in perspective. Thank you. Back to you, Ms.
Thank you so much, Herbert, for that. My takeaways from this session, of course, like when I try to wrap up what Herbert has said, is that emotional safety is very important. Diverse representation in every dialogue is key. And it's also important to ensure that trauma-informed facilitation is in point. And being able to recognize signs of distress when conducting the dialogue. Those are key things that we need to put into consideration. Now, I'd like to thank Fred and Herbert for this session, and now we'll progress to Q&A. If you have any questions for our speakers, and also you're welcome on board everyone to thank our speakers for the very informative discussion and being able to unpack what Homestead Dialogue looks like. So I'll be reading some of the questions from the chat. If you haven't yet sent your question, feel free to drop it in the chat. One of the questions that we have is, hello everyone, is there a branch in Kakamega? I would like to join the group as a volunteer as I pursue my degree in social work. Colleague on the call, feel free to reach out to, I think that goes to Fred, that first question. Are there any branches in Kakamega for one of the audience participants to join? And then the second question is going to Herbert, which is, while conducting the Homestead Dialogues, what was your entry strategy? So those are two questions that I've seen in the chat. Then there is, in reality, all right, there's one, it's quite a number. I'm seeing more pop up. Let me just get them. The third one is, in the reality, this being, sorry, I click this moving happen. In the reality, this being, the messages for what? Sorry for that. I am unable to. In the reality, this being a polygamous community, I'm keen to know if this approach encountered scenarios where sorry,
Yeah.
when the screen is I'm unable to see. Yeah, encountered scenarios. Yes, there is this being polygamous. Yeah, if the approach encountered scenarios where I'm
I could
sorry,
see
guys.
the questions,
If you can see it, feel free to.
answer.
But yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I go first, Mercy?
Yes.
Okay, so the first question was on whether we have a branch in Kakamega. For the ALM program, we've been implementing it in Narok, in Narok County, and our other consortium partner, ActionAid, was implementing in Garissa and Isiolo. So unfortunately, we don't have it in Kakamega, but we can link up and see which other regions we are implementing in so that you can join us together to finish. So we highly welcome you. The second question was, in reality, this being a polygamous community, I'm keen to know if this approach encountered scenarios where couples or households had divergent decisions, and how did you address this? So to be in a setup like this, of course, there are divergent views. we highly encourage divergent views. Why? Because they ensure that decisions are vetted, they are more debated, and that the final decisions that comes out from those divergent views are very binding and they are long-lasting. So yes, we have encountered situations where there are divergent views, and we highly encourage them, and we continuously encourage community members to
It's
stop,
urgent.
sorry, there's some noise at the background. So we highly encourage them to come up with those divergent views so that we can have more debate and more critiquing. Egan, kindly
what's
mute.
coming.
Egan, you can kindly mute.
Oh dear.
So I believe I've answered the second question. The third question, sorry.
Egan, if somebody can kindly help us mute Egan's mic.
Egan, kindly mute.
Let me just mute him.
Sorry.
All right, you can quickly. Sorry for that interference.
Sorry. Okay. So I believe those are the two questions from my side. As I prepare for the third question, maybe Herbert can take the other questions.
Sorry, Frederick.
Yes. Herbert, were you able to note the question?
Hope you can hear me. So I
Yes,
see
we
a
can hear you.
question from Stanley. What distinguishes dialogue between couples from dialogue within Homestead, given that the audience remains the same? To what extent does setting influence these differences, and what other factors, parameters should be considered? Yeah, the other parameters, yeah, lies into issues around privacy, the power structure. Yeah, they come into perspective when talking about this kind of dialogues, and the difference that we saw, especially when we were starting this conversation. There's a lot of blame games that was coming between the women and the men. You have a discussion, the men will tell you it's the women who want this. Then you go to the women, they'll tell you the men are the head of this household. Yeah, you go to some settings, you see the men don't want to marry girls that have not been cut. Yeah, the girls also have pressure now to get the cut. So there are so many dynamics that come into it. So that when you get into a household and you only listen to the man and the woman as a couple, it does not go to the extent to show which direction will this household move. When you bring in the extended families and the fathers start listening to the girls in the same homestead that have gone through the cut, they start hearing their pain. They start feeling the emotions that these girls have felt. It led to changing direction, especially on the attitudes of these key decision makers in the household. So when we started the couples, we were just looking at the man and the wife, and most of the time they are coming with one wife, yeah, into these discussions. But once we went further, looked at the homestead, there are several other people within this homestead who also have an interest within these discussions. And if you look through the evaluation for homesteads that really had that common consensus in the decision they made, they fared on well in terms of their future commitment not to cut the girls in that homestead, unlike the ones that were only the couples who are making the decision. So there's a major difference when you look at these two kind of dialogues. And when we evaluated, looking at even these two dialogues separately, we tend to see better positive outcomes, better results when the homestead is considered during these dialogues.
All right. Thank you so much, Herbert. I think I will add you one more question. There are a couple of more questions that have come up, and I will leave the floor open to any of you, either Fred or you, to answer to them. There's a question on alternative rites of passages. The question is, in regions where FGM is deeply tied to transition to womanhood, how do we ensure that ARP or alternative rights passages are not seen as symbolic, but are actually granted the same cultural legitimacy by the community elders and traditional gatekeepers? That is the Fred. I think you already answered the other question. Let me just scroll down to the others. We have a couple of more. We still have challenges when it comes to having referrals for survivors. What are some of the strategies you could put in place? That's for Herbert. The other is, what are some of the challenges you have faced at Homestead level in a nomadic community, and how have you overcome them? And I don't know, I will let you answer both. I think we have less than 3 minutes for this question session. So if you can, let me just read out the rest, and then I think you can answer all of them at once. The other is, it appears that sensitization activities are the key approach that you're using. Could you kindly clarify on how you measure girls' agency within this context? And then there is, for Fred, in regions where FGM is deeply, I think I've answered that one. I've given you that question on ARP. Is it only the 2 counties you have mentioned that girls can have these dialogues occur? Have they occurred only? So are they only tied to these 2 counties that you have mentioned, or is it open? If there's another, yes. I think that relates to also the question from Tiati Pokot community within Baringo County, where there's practice. Can that also be applied there? Back and over to you, Fred and Herbert. I think we'll start off with Fred and then go over to Herbert to respond to the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Very quickly, in the interest of time, the first question was on ARPs. How do we ensure that ARPs are given the same sort of legitimacy? For them to be given proper legitimacy, they have to be community-led. They have to be community-designed. So ensure that the elders are involved, ensure that the survivors are involved, ensure that also that there are trainings that precede the actual alternative rite of passage. So community-led, community-designed ARPs can work best when the community has a voice in how they are designed, how they are implemented, how they run and stuff like that. The second question was on the challenges. I think I highlighted quite a number, 2 of them in the beginning, but I can add inclusion. Persons with disability or those in isolated areas are sometimes left out. So there is need for deliberate inclusion strategies while conducting homestead dialogues. FGM is still and remains a deeply rooted cultural belief. So it's tied to notions such as identity, purity, marriageability, and all that. So they require long-term engagement. It's not a one-off thing. You don't expect to just implement a year or so and expect change, because they are deeply rooted. So those are some of the critical challenges. I also saw a question on whether there's a published report. Yes, we have done the study. Findings are there, as Herbert has shown us clearly. So there's a report, there's a learning brief that has been published with regard to this. And yeah, so I believe those were my 3 questions. And then someone also was asking, I saw on the chat, on whether you can do a one-off dialogue, or whether you can always go back to somewhere, the same place to implement this Homestead dialogue. Study shows that one of implementation methods, like just a dialogue and expect change, might not be very viable. So it's good to follow up. It's good to also layer it with other things. So don't just do a one-off dialogue and expect change. It's good to follow up, review, send champions and stuff like that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. And thank you, colleagues, for the questions. I think I'll spend some time to answer this important question around referrals. There's a question, we still have challenges when it comes to having referrals for survivors. What are some of the key strategies we could put in place? Yeah, this has been always the challenge, but I'll mention a few strategies. The first one, we need system level strategies. Yeah, just having very clear established formal referral pathways that people understand. They understand this is the pathway for this referral. And here we're looking at the system level. Secondly, you look at the referral focal person. Do you have somebody who has been trained, who is dedicated, staff maybe at the health facility, an organization that can coordinate referrals? That also is a strategy. How do you close the loop on referral? Ensure that the mechanism where the referring provider receives confirmation that the survivor accessed the referral services. So if they want services, there are ways to really ensure that they receive this. So facility level, yeah, just integrate referral coordination into routine services. When it's standalone, sometimes also creates some level of stigma. So issues around integration. One-stop center model. I know maybe some of you have looked at this, where feasible, establish or strengthen integrated services. When they go for service, they'll get all that they do want. Issues around transport and communication support. This has been a challenge. You get a case that people are willing to really refer this, but now there are challenges, barriers that come into limiting this. So lastly, I'll talk about community level strategies. Yeah, we have had the key strategy government has put into and invested the community health promoters, follow-ups. We have had areas where they're doing very good work. Yeah, to conduct home visits for survivors who miss follow-up appointments, just to ensure that we complete this referral. There's this key strategy, the survivor navigators or peer supporters, where we train survivors to really volunteer to accompany other survivors, yeah, through the referral process. Then just creating also our awareness, yeah, at the community. Then addressing the barriers, definitely, that hinder referral. One of the barriers is the issue of confidentiality assurance. How are we assuring confidentiality of the survivors? This is quite important. The choice and informed consent. Remember, as I told you earlier, this is their story, yeah? Offer survivors options rather than prescriptive referral. Yeah, they have a choice. Let them take that choice. Let's reduce that waiting time. Yeah, when they need services, let's ensure that this is done. So lastly, is issues around psychosocial support. Yeah, survivors who are in shock, distress are less likely to follow through. Yeah, so let's provide emotional support before attempting even referral. We just don't tell someone to take up this referral. Let them also be supported emotionally. So I can mention just a few of those areas, but remember there are system, facility, community, and also survivor-centered when it comes to how we approach referrals. Yeah, I think some of the questions in the chat, in the interest of time, I can just respond to them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Herbert. Thank you once again to our speakers and our panelists. I'd like to hand over to Keegan, my co-moderator, for the next phase of this session. Over to you, Keegan.
Thank you so much, Mercy, for that very enlightening session. And I don't know, maybe it's because I was expecting this webinar today, or generally, I think my inspiration today is drawn from the African spirit. I don't know about you, Mercy, maybe you will tell us. And I think it's on this premise that I feel that Amref Health Africa has clearly demonstrated that you can do these conversations about harmful practices without interrupting the very social fabric of a community. I'm really learning a lot, and I'm also seeing the questions in the chat box. I'm sure also our participants are learning a thing or two, and maybe also in the spirit of Africanism again, I'll allude to an example of a green calabash, which symbolizes community and shared responsibility. It's the one that carries food that feeds one person to the other, which reminds that we cannot act alone. The green calabash also is not fed by itself. It takes a lot of people to do it. It relies on everyone. And so how are you going to contribute, even as a panelist, as you're listening? As you think about that, I'll also wish to welcome you as we fill this calabash to help me answer the third and the fourth poll questions, which I want to request Egan or Eric to project for me the poll questions. Again, colleagues, is that we have French and Amharic versions, and the chat box option, if you have any challenges, is accessible to you. So this poll question is asking that after today's session, are you familiar with Homestead dialogues and their purpose in efforts to end FGM? So here we are trying to assess your understanding on the dialogues, purpose. If you really understand it, how is your level of understanding in short form? Yeah. Again, just a reminder, we have French and Amharic options. You can just click on the option that speaks well to you. Yes, I see your responses are coming in. I encourage a lot of us to continue participating, because this will help us assess the level of understanding on the Homestead dialogues, because it's something that is backed by evidence and we've seen it working. In case of any challenges, please feel free to highlight, and it will be of assistance. Right, thank you. So we can end the poll and share the results. We see or hear the results. So after today's session, are you familiar with Homestead dialogues and their purpose in efforts to end FGM? We see a great majority of 83% say yes, I understand Homestead dialogues and their purpose clearly. This is particularly encouraging because of the presentation, and it's giving us an opportunity to learn on what we can do more. There's also a 17% that says somewhat, I understand, but still need more information on their purpose. That's also noted. But we are also, something very encouraging is that the response is no. The no response has 0 click in across. But we have a participant in Amharic that the option is no. But you can continue engaging with us. You can continue writing to us. But that clearly demonstrates from the percentages here that Herbert and Frederick, you did a good job. Therefore, we are going to go to the fourth and the last poll. You can project the last poll, Eric or Egan. The fourth poll, how likely are you to support the implementation or adoption of Homestead dialogues as an approach for FGM abandonment. I will repeat. How likely are you to support the implementation or adoption of Homestead dialogues as an approach for FGM abandonment? You can assess your likelihood on the various options that are accessible to you. Also, again, a reminder that the French and Amharic options are still available. You can click to whichever that speaks to you. Even if you're neutral, we welcome all responses. Yes, we just want to see how much more we can do. Yes, fair enough, colleagues. I'll end the poll and share the results with you. Yeah, so how likely are you to support the implementation or adoption of Homestead dialogues as an approach of FGM abandonment? Very likely is around 76%, which is good feedback. And there is a likelihood and for a 24% of you. And this demonstrates that this is a good initiative that is the program really looked into. We are encouraged by this, and therefore, I'd want to thank you all for your engagement so far. And with that energy and insight, I now have the pleasure again to welcome back Mercy and say thank you for your time. Mercy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Keegan, and thank you to the participants. I mean, I'm excited to hear that the majority of the participants are very likely to continue along the dialogues. At this juncture, what has been discussed here is also available to the public on the Girl Generation website. And I would like to request Catherine to test the link to the Homestead Dialogue Learning Brief in the chat box so that you're able to access information on the Homestead Dialogues and how it can be used to end FGM in your community. You can also access other resources developed under this program on the website. Catherine, please share the link also with the audience and the members in the webinar today in the chat box. And from the Girl Generation website, you click on resources, then select global public goods. And from there, you'll be able to access some of those materials. If you're not able to access it from the Girl Generation website or TBG, please reach out to the Girl Generation program at info@thegirlgeneration.org or individual consortium partners if you need any information about the resources from the website. And I hope you've been able to access the materials in the chat. Oh, awesome. So you're able to access that in the chat. Feel free to look at it now or later on at your own time. So we'll move on to the next. We are coming to a close of the webinar and of this discussion on Homestead Dialogue. And I believe you have been enriched, enlightened, and you have learned quite a lot from this session today. To close this webinar, I'd like to invite Ms. Bernadette Christian Loloju, the Chief Executive Officer at Anti-FGM Board Kenya, or in full Anti-Female Genital Mutilation Board in Kenya, to give her closing remarks. Madam Bernadette is passionate about girls' rights. She's a girls' rights crusader, and she's committed to contributing to the elimination of FGM in Kenya and envisions a world free of FGM by 2030. Exactly, you had that right. 5 years from now, or 4 years from now. Yes, we want FGM by 2030. And in 2024, she was honored as a national hero in the human rights category during the Mashujaa Day celebration for her tireless commitment to protecting the rights of women and girls in Kenya, The same year, she received the Gender Justice Award from Equality Now for her instrumental role in enabling a legal environment that supports the elimination of FGM. Her impact has also been recognized beyond Kenya's borders, as she was awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by the Global Women Peace Foundation in the United States for her outstanding contribution to the fight against FGM. Welcome, Madam Bernadette, to give your closing remarks. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Masiego. Thank you very much to all the participants, and thank you very much to our panelists. And thank you very much to Amref Health Africa. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're listening to us. From a rainy Nairobi, it was a bit chilly in the morning, but I can see the sun is up, so we feel a bit better, and I'm not scared about the floods coming in when I'm driving back home. So I'm relaxed today because the clouds are clear. You know that ending FGM is really close to my heart. As a survivor of FGM, as a woman who comes from a community that practices FGM, we have worked extremely hard for the last very many years. There are those who came before us, there are us who have come now, and there are those who have come after us. And we are all working towards having zero FGM. I want to say that Kenya has made great strides in the campaign to end FGM. The government of Kenya has put in place policies, strategies, guidelines, programs, and has even put financial support in the campaign to end FGM. Through the Prohibition of FGM Act 2011, we have the Anti-FGM Board in place that came into place in 2014. We are now around 12 years old, and we have been working very closely with NGOs, with community-based organizations, with faith-based organizations, with the UN agencies, with communities, with women, men, elders, young people, to bring FGM to an end. And this afternoon and this morning or this evening from Nairobi, I want to confirm that Kenya has really pushed this agenda forward, which is one, we know that FGM is one of the worst forms of gender-based violence meted on women and girls. But from where I sit, I want to say that we have made progress. We are not where we were 3 decades ago. Today, a girl is less likely to undergo FGM than 3 decades ago. So we want to say that we have made progress. We are not where we were, but we are not where we want to be. We have 4 years to 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, 5.3, where FGM contributes to equality and women empowerment. And 4 years is a very short time for us to get there. But what I want to say is that we have tried all the possible strategies that are within our reach to really bring FGM to an end. But I want to agree with each and every one of you that the Homestead Dialogues is a game changer. It's a game changer. That's where the My Dear Daughter campaign comes in that we launched in 2025, November 25th with Amref Health Africa in Suswa, where we had the First Lady of Kenya come in and really support this. Our PS was there and other dignitaries, while at the same time our elders were there to commit to ending FGM among the Maasai community. We know that we have done the same in other communities. We have done it among the Samburu, among the Sabao, and we are seeing how we can do it even among the Gabra, the Borana, the Somali elders, the Kuria elders, the Pokot elders have done it already. So we are getting closer to the zero that we are looking at. And we've also seen that from 2014 to 2022, we have dropped from 21% to 15% for women between the age of 15 to 49. So now here we are. We have done community dialogues. We have done awareness creation. We have done elders declarations. We have done all these things. And we are here now, we are saying it is now a personal decision, a household decision to end FGM. It's not a community decision anymore, but it is a household decision. And I want to thank Amref for really taking a lead on this. I want to thank each and every one of you for thinking around it and seeing it possible that for every girl to be protected, we need a family setup. We need a mother, we need a father to make a decision. Because we all know that for a girl to get cut, the parents must have given an affirmation to say, yes, this girl is going to get cut. We are going to call a circumciser to the home to come and cut this girl, or we are going to call a nurse, or we are going to call a retired nurse to come to our home to cut this girl. Because we know now we have moved from a community FGM to a personal decision to take our girls through FGM. When I was growing up, it was a community affair. It would be announced in the whole community that you're going to get cut next week or next month or December, you're going to get cut. Most of the time we used to go through the cut in December. It was like a tradition. After you finish class 8, then the next thing, FGM. And it's after exams. So it was very obvious. And the girls who are going to go through the cut knew each other. Even in school, they knew this girl is going to get cut, or you are the one who announces to your friends, because it was a pride. When we were growing up, it was a pride, like you have to announce to everyone, I'm also becoming a woman in December, I'm getting cut. Welcome to our home, because I'm going to get cut. Your mom will also announce to everyone, please bring milk, bring firewood, bring water, because we are going to cut our girls this December. And they would know this and this girl are going to get cut this December. And everyone would see that your head is shaved clean, because you have to be shaved clean. And then when you go back to school or you go to Form 1, everyone would see that you have been cut, you have been shaved clean, so you have been cut. And then at the same time, you'd be given gifts. So people knew you have gifts, you have been given gifts. But now it is not a community affair anymore, because the law has come into place. And the communities know that if we cut girls, then we will face the law. And so now we have new ways of doing things. The communities are cutting girls at night. They are cutting younger girls. They are making sure that they either take girls to their grandmothers or their aunties. They are running away from the law. So this has become a household affair, because as a mother, when I'm deciding when my girl should be cut, then I will just tell my sister, I'll bring my girl to your home so that nobody can know that she's getting cut, or I can tell my mother, or I can tell someone else, so that we run away from the law. So who is making decisions? It is the family. It is the mother and the father who are making a decision to cut girls. And that's why household negotiations or household dialogues, where we now go to the household, where as a mother myself, as Bernadette Loloju, I make a decision that I'm not going to cut my girl. My husband decides we are not going to cut our daughters. Then from there, those girls are safe from the cut, because it's not a community affair anymore. And something else that I want to say, when we were getting cut during our time, you would get cut in front of the whole community. Like the whole community would be present for your cutting, because they used to cut girls at 5:30 to 6 in the morning. So the whole community would be there to come and witness you're getting cut, because they want to see to it that you're not crying, that you're not going even to even move your feet, you're not going to even show any like, you're not going to show that people want to know in the community that you are courageous. You are courageous enough to face the knife. You are courageous enough to face the cut. So the whole community would be there. All the women would be standing there to see you and to make sure that you have been cut. And you had a woman who was holding your legs, a woman who was holding your back. And all these people are very important in your lifetime. They were very important in your lifetime. Like, it's like when you go to get baptized and you have someone who is coming to stand up for, like, to witness your baptismal, or during a wedding, people come and witness your wedding. It's the same with the cut. It was being witnessed so that people can be able to say, yes, you got cut. You know, today I might had you in the bedroom, or we might tell people we have cut you at night, but we didn't cut you, because there was nobody to witness your cutting. When we were growing up, there was a group of witnesses, and they would even say, you have not cut her well. Please continue removing some more, remove more, to make sure that you are really cut. Like, the cutting was not just a joke, it was a real cut. And if you find women who went through that very bad cut, it is terrible. It was a bad cut. Today, a mother might cheat people that I cut my girl, but they have just put them in the bedroom and said, you sleep there for the next 3 days so that people think you are cut, but you're not cut. And that's why household comes in and then my dear daughter comes in. Why are you cutting your daughter? This is your daughter. This is your daughter. You cannot lie to yourself. You cannot lie to your conscience. You cannot lie to your child. So this is the time, and the time has come. If we can all take up the household dialogue, if we can all take up the My Dear Daughter campaign, and if we can all have something where we say daughters against FGM, sons against FGM, mothers against FGM, survivors against FGM, fathers against FGM, we have all to come together and end FGM, like get to 0 FGM in the next 4 years by 2030. We have to. And this is the direction we should all take. Take the campaign to the grassroots, take the campaign to the households, take the campaign to the manyatas, take the campaign to the lowest point of the community. And where I sit, I am sure, and I'm very sure we are ending it. We are ending it. We are going to get to 0. We are going to get to 0. Because if every mother decides and every father decides they are not going to cut their daughters, then who will be cutting the daughters? Who will be cutting them? Even the circumcisers will have no job to do. They will have no job to do. Yeah, we do not even have to tell ourselves we are economically empowering circumcisers. No, the moment the market for your goods is not there, who are you going to sell your goods to? The moment there are no girls to cut, who is the circumciser going to cut? There'll be no girl to cut. So let us continue with the household dialogues. Let us now take this as the direction that we are taking. Anti-FGM board is going to launch the My Dear Daughter campaign across the counties. The Anti-FGM board is here to help in strategic direction. The Anti-FGM board is here to help in coming up with the guidelines and everything that is needed in this campaign. But we need the support from our partners. AMREF Health Africa, thanks for taking the lead. You've always been taking the lead. I know that we have been doing alternative rites of passage. That one we were running with the girls, going to do the alternative rites of passage, sometimes even without the parents knowing what we were doing. It also helped us a bit. It pushed us to where we are. But we are saying, yes, we have had all these other ways of ending FGM. But now let us go now to the household. If every mother, if every father signs that they are not going to cut their own daughters, I'm telling you, we are done. We are done. It is done. It's dusted. Because as many mothers and as many fathers say I, and when they say I, I'm not going to say to as many fathers and mothers say nay, because I'm not looking at the nay, I'm looking at the I. And so even for us in this meeting, as many of us as possible say, I am going to support the household dialogues and the My Dear Daughter campaign to end FGM. And if you are a girl, please say daughters against FGM. And if you are a son, say sons against FGM. And if you are a mother, say mothers against FGM. And if you are a father, say fathers against FGM. And then now we go to villages against FGM, then communities against FGM, counties against FGM, and then a country against FGM. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening. Asanteni sana.
Wow, wow. A round of applause for those wonderful remarks from Bernadette, the CEO of the Anti-FGM board. I mean, are you ready to end FGM in your community? Are you ready to end FGM as an individual? I mean, for me, it is not community's decision. It is a household decision. It is a personal decision. So yes, thank you so much to everyone that put aside the time. Thank you to Madam Bernadette for the powerful closing remarks. I'm going home. It's my personal decision. I as nothing. What am I doing to end FGM? And thank you so much to all our speakers and our dear audience for joining us today. And thank you for I know if you still had any questions that you felt aren't addressed, please drop them in the chat. Our panelists will take them up, and if we can find a way of sharing it further on, the AMREF team will find a way of providing that feedback. And if you'd like any guidance, Catherine, if you can drop maybe an email in the chat that in case you'd like to reach out. And just to continue forward the conversation on ending on the Homestead dialogues, and Madam Bernadette has been a very key and instrumental in the ESC bill currently at the IALA Parliament on ending FGM. So we are continuing the conversation. We are not ending only at country level. We are taking it at the East African community. So we are continuing this conversation at all levels. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And with that, I'd like to invite my co-moderator, Keegan, so that we can close the session. Thank you to our panelists, Harvard, Fred, and everyone else who supported us. Keegan, would you like to turn on your camera and as we close up? Okay, all right. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and let's continue the conversation.